Hello everyone, welcome to StraightA. Dawson here, back with another video here today, and we are starting the week and starting the season with our power rankings going into week 1. And man, I'm excited to be back because I love me some power rankings. I love me weighing the teams of how good and how bad they are. We have a couple other things sprinkled into this video as well, but the main focus will be what is my current NFL power rankings for the NFL season going into week 1. Now, this takes into account a lot of things. So I had a previous series from last year of Week 18 power rankings. That was going into Week 18. I never made one since. So, from Week 18 matchups to the playoff picture, to the Super Bowl, to the offseason, to the preseason games, all of those factors have been taken into account to adjust my previous power rankings. So that's what the numbers on screen will indicate. So a green box means they went up since then. A red box means they went down since then from their previous position since the going into week 18. So that's a very big clarification here. So this is a continued series, not just everybody starting off from a random point of view in my mind. I had power rankings from last year, I used them, I made adjustments, and I configured my mind around what would be the best position for them and position change. We're going to take it row by row because we have 8 teams per row. And you're probably going to see some spoilers because I'm not really going to cut this too much. But I hope you guys are going to enjoy this. Let's get right into the video. Of course, leave a like, subscribe, and comment suggestions for future videos below. But let's get right into it of the first 32 through 25 rated teams. I'm going to just adjust it on the fly here. So if you see some teams here that you get spoiled by, go fucking figure. I don't care. I'm just going to go right into it. Number 32, we have the Carolina Panthers. Since then, I don't think they've improved that much. They still have a lot to prove, and a lot of other teams have a more solidified baseline. Simple at 32. Patriot 31. Drake May was drafted, but Jacoby Brissett was named the starter. Team doesn't have a very good roster. They were already low down. Move them down. The Raiders at 30. Now, they were previously like at 24 or something. And I don't know. I guess they were just winning games and doing well enough. The rosters feel like they only get worse. They only get more frustrated. Their coaching staff is all new. There's a lot of unknown for me. And I feel like a lot of other lower tier teams have a little bit more potential than them. So I decided to drop the Raiders down quite a bit. So -7, big fall for them, but I think it's appropriate rating for them. I don't like them this season. 29, Giants. I moved them, kept them right above the Raiders because I think Daniel Jones' ceiling is higher than Gardner Minshew's. Now, with that said, they still suck, so they went down 5 slots because, again, I rated them very highly the previous season because of them having playoff success. Now, this season, they went down gradually and finally have plummeted down to number 29. The Chargers are 28. They lost pretty much the core of their team, but they're already pretty low, but they have more potential than other teams, so 28. Titans, fine. They're fine. Coach baseline, that's about it for me. Coaching baseline, I feel like is very good. It's just a good offense, a fine defense, or kind of swap those around. Move them up 1. I feel like they have a lot of potential this next season, but I also think they have a low floor. So take that as you will. Low ceiling. So they're at 27. Vikings, with JJ McCarthy getting hurt, they hurt themselves a lot with their potential, so they would have been higher in consideration. But I'm dropping down 6 because a lot of injuries. Hawkinson's gone. JJ McCarthy's gone. Their defense is in shambles. They still have a little bit of sprinkle of chance, but I'm putting them down to 26. Commanders moving up 6. What the hell are you doing? The main reason I've moved up the Commanders is because I think they put enough of a band-aid over their broken team that a lot of older players have the potential to maybe get the Commanders rolling. So versus the other teams below them, they actually might have a playoff shot, a very, very thin one still. But it's actually a little bit higher of a chance than these other teams because of the veteran instinct they have on that team. Now that could crumble apart, and they could easily be like a number 30 team. But I think it's a reasonable enough assumption to put them somewhere in 25, especially over the teams at 26 and below. So this is like in a whole tier of itself of in shambles teams with, they're lucky that we start 0-0 as the season starts. So there you go, Commanders 25. Moving on to the second row. Of course, you already saw the Jets at first, and of course you're seeing some more spoilers because I really don't care. If you want to get some sneak peeks at the top view, go figure, go for it. I don't care. Jets at 24. Aaron Rodgers coming back +6. I mean, that's pretty damn simple. They didn't improve really much in anything, but Aaron Rodgers coming back helps a lot. So any injuries that happened are already counted against them. But now that a lot of their injuries are coming back, I can then count that towards them doing well again. So Jets at +6. I'm enjoying it. I think the Jets have a very good chance of going up there in a lot of tiers. But right now, we got to keep our expectations tempered a little bit. Saints at -6. it really just does not. The Saints don't catch a break. The fucking coaching is in shambles. The offseason didn't show anything that they could do. The preseason showed nothing. And there's just teams above them that are just getting more potential and getting things rolling. Now, here's the obvious thing I want to point to everyone out. Just because you moved down doesn't mean you necessarily got worse. Just because you moved up doesn't mean you necessarily got better. It's also to do with the teams around you. So, for examples, the Commanders +6 sounds like a lot, but also a lot of the teams below them just got, unfortunately, a lot of unusual circumstances. JJ McCarthy's out. Chargers lost a core of their team. The Giants, Daniel Jones is still unpredictably whatever. A lot of these teams around them also impact how far they go up or down. So keep that in mind. Just because you see a big number, like, oh my gosh, he thinks they got that much better. In some cases, yes, a little bit. But for the cases of the Jets, it just so happens that they have a very good core team. They are ranked pretty low, and they actually have a shot with Aaron Rodgers coming back, so they moved up +6, and I think it's a very appropriate number. But also, we have to temper expectations because they weren't elite last year, and they were already low for a reason. But let's move them up. Let's give them a boost this year because of the expectations we do have for them. That's why I kind of logicked it in my mind. Again, Saints -6. Cardinals +4. I've given it a +4 because, again, similar to, I definitely want to put them below the 26 and below club. I think the core of the team might be around the middle ground of the Commanders' expectations, and I think the Saints are in shambles. I think the Jets have a high expectations, but have to be tempered a little bit. Cardinals somewhere in that low kind of mid-20 range. I think that maybe it's a little bit of a high expectation for me, but Kyler looked good. Marvin Harrison Jr. looks good coming into it. Trey McBride was awesome. The core of their team is slightly better in terms of O-line, D-line, secondary. Not much better, but slightly better. And they didn't perform awful last year considering their expectations. John Gannon seems competent. I think 22 is a very fair spot. Broncos really didn't move anywhere because, again, the teams around them, but they only got slightly better. Nothing really that much worse, so Broncos at 21. Falcons at 20, +7. One of the bigger jumps here. I think +8 is the biggest jump, and the -8 is the biggest drop. No, -7 is the biggest drop, twice. The Falcons +7, pretty obvious. I mean, the whole core of their team has basically changed with Kirk Cousins coming in. Kyle Pitts actually might actually get some love. Bijan was elite coming into last year. The preseason, everybody looked pretty good. There's just a lot of awesome things that happen with the Falcons here, and especially with some of the teams below them. I think +7 felt pretty reasonable, putting them into top 20 conversation. Because while I think we still got temporary expectations based on the Bucs being a proven team, Falcons definitely have a really big viable chance of doing something awesome this next year. Seahawks, they're kind of a middle ground team. They won games last season, so they're able to stay into it. But their coach, Pete Carroll, of course, left, so it's a whole new coaching staff. Geno Smith has regressed a lot. What do we really expect from the Seahawks? That's a big question mark. So -4, they were originally at 15 or so. Let's bring them down a little bit. A lot of other teams have higher expectations or exceeding over a little bit more than the Seahawks. The Jags at -7. Man, it's a big drop for the Jags. Really, there's not a big reason in my head that the Jags have dropped, other than the fact that every team above them has a better core team than them. And what's important about that is from here on out, pretty much, we're going to get in the conversation of a lot of playoff teams or a lot of teams that had the expectations possibly making the playoffs. So, or in the last week of Week 18, Jags were one of those teams, and they just weren't able to make it. I don't remember if they controlled their destiny or not, but they still didn't make it on the fringe of that. The offseason, of course, they lost Calvin Ridley, so they're back to original Christian Kirk as their number one, Gabe Davis, Brian Thomas Jr., all that. That looks fine. That looks whatever. Preseason didn't show much. The offseason didn't really show much. And overall, the teams above them just either already have a better core team than them, inherently, or have better expectations. For example, the Bears. For example, the Colts. The Bengals come to mind. The Browns come to mind. The Bucs were a proven team. The Steelers are a proven team. Say what you will about the Browns' offense, their defense is fucking elite. So you look at all those teams are kind of in that same range, and I gotta give some credit to them rather than the Jags. The Jags just did not show up anything last year, so we have to temper their expectations. Do I think they're going to do well? Yes, but number 18 is kind of a fair spot for somebody who, for one, didn't make the playoffs, and two, didn't really have a great showing in the offseason. What are they really doing? So we'll see. The Bears in the bottom half, so 17. Also, I kind of just spoiled basically the next few picks because they're going to be 16 through 13 or whatever, but they're pretty expected in those slots. The Bears, number 17, +5. Of course, they already performed very well in the last half of the season last year. Off-season, they only got way better. The only reason I'm not putting them in the top half is because, again, this is a rookie quarterback with a lot of new weapons for him to play with. Could he do really well? Yes, absolutely. He could be easily a top 10 team next few weeks. But we also have to keep our, again, expectations tempered a little bit. There's nothing to gradually show that Caleb Williams is going to be amazing this next season. I don't like their coaching still. I think that the offseason, while very exceedingly high, there's still a lot of question marks around it. So a lot of other teams have a proven core with high expectations, and that's what really makes up the 17-16 difference for me here. So the Bears, while I do expect a decent bit from them, they still have a lot to prove. So 17 is where we're going to put them. And at this point, we're going to kind of just kind of minimize it. Of course, you're going to see the top few, whatever. Go for it. I don't really care that much about hiding that much from you. We're going to go 16 through 9 right now. Colts, +3. Anthony Richardson's back. Core of that team's still very good. Simple to the point, they're staying at 16. Steelers, no matter what, you got to keep them in the top 16 conversation, at least in the beginning of the season, because they're always going to go 9-8, 10-7, or whatever, or at least stay in that conversation. They made the playoffs last year. They got destroyed by the Bills. But, they're still going to be the Steelers, so number 15 is where I'm putting them. The Browns at number 14, -4. Of course, they got destroyed in the fucking playoffs by, was it the Texans? Yeah, they got destroyed by the Texans. Their offseason was fine, and their preseason was fine. But every other team above them just had a better expectations going into it. So I'm giving them 14, -4. Bengals at 13. Now, why you're asking me, why are the Bengals at 13? The main reason is they just didn't make the playoffs last year. That's the one thing that's lingered in my mind. At least every other team above them made the playoffs and had some kind of expectations. The only other teams that made the playoffs were Browns and Steelers, but I think the Bengals did well enough in the offseason. Getting Joe Burrow back increases their stock enough for me to justify putting them at 14. Could you argue them above the Bucks? Yes. The reason I'm not going to say that they're above the Bucks is because the Bucks had a fucking incredible amazing playoff position. They beat the Eagles, then they competed well with the fucking Lions, had a good offseason of re-signing talent. They looked good in the preseason. I just can't, I can't just punish the Bucks for that, or at least award the Bengals for. Outside of Joe Burrow being hurt, they just played fine. They played typical football. Their backup quarterback did just fine. I don't know how much was that to do with the coaching. Don't know how much to do with that was the quarterback that replaced Joe Burrow. But Joe Burrow coming back does have my expectations higher. But again, they are in a good position. But a lot of other teams, again, when you get to this top 14 club of playoff teams, you have to be a little bit more tempered with expectations, especially with the Bengals, who have just not last 2 seasons done to the expectations since their Super Bowl appearance. I'm a little bit tempered there. Could you put them higher? Yes, but I think every other team above them deserve to be above them for the time being. The 12 Bucks, I already talked about them, +6 though. I had them as an 18th ranked team going into the playoffs. They easily, over the offseason and the playoff picture, easily eclipsed that because they showed that they belonged. Then you got the Dolphins at number 11. They originally were top 18, top 16, whatever. -5 because, again, they got destroyed by the Chiefs. The offseason only feel like they put a little bit more question marks on them. And while I do think they're going to be very good, I still have to temper it because, again, Eagles, Texans, Cowboys, Bills, Rams, all of them have a better core team, or at least have shown a lot more flashes. So Dolphins at 11 seems reasonable. Top 10 now. Eagles, as much as I hate them, you have to give them some credit. I mean, their offseason really sucked, but or not really sucked, but their offseason was really good. But their last appearance last year, Week 18 and into the playoff picture, did not really show anything for them. So that's why they go down 1. But again, their offseason was so fucking good. I got to keep them in the conversation. And this is recorded after the Eagles-Packers game. I'm not going to comment on that because it shouldn't affect these rankings. I didn't even look at it for stats or anything. But man, they have to be a top 10 team still with the roster they have. It's just inevitable. The Texans at number 9. Before the playoffs, they were ranked 17 or something like that. So maybe 15 or 16, whatever. They were ranked pretty low. But only because, again, they ranked from 32 the previous year. They went from 32 to 16 all the way in the whole course of a season because I do realistic power ranking changes. I don't just change because, oh my gosh, the Texans looked like an elite team in the first 3 weeks. I'm going to jump them up a bunch. I kind of do it gradually. I do it based on sample size. I do it based on history. You can't just jump people up and down gradually as time goes on. I don't move people up in a typical week-to-week setting +6 or -6 very often. You'll never see me really do anything above 6, except in a video like this. So I had to gradually change them. But the Texans, this offseason, into the playoff picture. So of course they destroyed the Browns. They competed. Destroyed the Browns. They competed against the Ravens in a not great game. But their offseason was pretty dang good. They have a lot of younger guys. And again, I think there's a lot of good expectations for them. So they have to be a top 10 team with CJ Stroud and such. So I'm going to give them number 9. Then we have the Cowboys, Bills, Ravens, top 8 teams basically. And we're going to get really nitty gritty here. The Cowboys at number 8 at -4. Of course, when you have a bad playoff appearance and they didn't do much in the offseason, you have to be ranked a little bit lower. But at least they made the playoffs, and at least they have been a very good core team for the most part. So they still stay at number 8. But again, humiliating defeat against Packers and not great offseason. Then you got the Bills at -4. Again, one of those not great things where they beat the Steelers and then they lost to the Chiefs and they haven't had a great offseason. They have to go -4. But they're still on the core a great team. The Rams at 6 competed against one of the better teams in the NFL, against the Lions. And they made the playoffs and they had a stellar last season, so they're already at number 8. They deserve to go above the Bills and Cowboys at this current moment in time of my expectations for them right now. Number 6, easily for them. The biggest change on the board, the Packers at 5. And unfortunately, I know this is going to affect my rankings for the next couple weeks. Of course, Jordan Love got injured recently. This is not counting that. It's not counting their performance in the Eagles game. This is just how they performed in the playoffs. The fact they beat the Cowboys, nearly beat the Niners, had a good offseason, and just so much potential going in from the preseason. I'm looking at the teams they surpassed. All right, you look at the Rams, the Bills, the Cowboys, Texans, Eagles, Dolphins, and Bucks. Bucks are pretty easy for them to beat because, again, they, performed better than the Bucks did against the Lions. Then you have, not the Lions, but they performed better against the 49ers than the Bucks did against the Lions. That was the logic. Dolphins, they're so cool right now. Eagles, they're cooling off pretty big right now. The offseason's carrying them. Texans, they're rising up, but again, the Packers were already a little bit above them. So how does that really counter it? The Packers just had more speed on them. Cowboys and Bills fell down quite a bit. They're teams that used to have a pretty good core, now have some doubt settling in. Rams also kind of hot, but a little bit more simmered down. Well, the Packers, really, you just have to put them in the top 5 conversation. Is that one of my crazier takes going to the season? Yes, especially now that the week 1 has happened. People are going to call me crazy. People are going to call me loony. But I think as a whole, you just have to kind of at least consider the Packers in a conversation like that. Their team has such a great core, and the only question mark really is Jordan Love. Before the injury, and even then, I don't think it's that much of a question mark. Then we get top 4. Obviously, this is our conference game teams. I mean, they perform so well. They're in a tier on their own. The Lions, number 4. I'm going to keep them below the Ravens because I think the Ravens had a better offseason. They were higher up the rankings already. Keep them at number 3 and 4. 49ers, they lost the playoffs, but they're still easily the best on-paper roster in the league. Chiefs, though, only got better, won the Super Bowl, so they originally going into the playoffs were pretty much ranked 8. And, of course, it's easy to get the number 1 when you win the Super Bowl from rank 8. So this is the typical power rankings from this year. Now, I'm going to show you what my power rankings looked from the previous year. This is a little bit context from what the rankings were. So for one, production increase, by the way, I just want to say thank you, Fiverr, because Fiverr helped me out a lot with that. This was my power rankings from the previous year going into week 18. That way you have some context of what that was. But again, the things that have changed since this power ranking was week 18 matchups. Then you had the what's called postseason, so the wild card, divisional, conference game, Super Bowl, etc. Then you had free agency signings. Then you had draft. Then you had contract reporting. Then you had preseason matches, and that's it. That's pretty much everything that's changed since then that has affected my numbers up and down. Criticize me if you want, but that is my current rankings. I'm going to do something fun that I kind of did last year was the Eliminator Challenge. This year, if you don't know what the Eliminator Challenge is, for each week, you pick a team that you believe is going to win, and then you basically say if they do win, you can't pick them for the rest of the season, and you try to pick week 2. Again, the trick is once you get one wrong, you are out. You get 25 total entries, and I spread my picks this week over 5 different teams or 5 different matchups. Honestly, I'm kind of considering doing 3 or 4 because I think the Bills over the Cardinals is pretty easy. Bengals over the Patriots is pretty easy. But then after that, it kind of gets a little wonky. 49ers over Jets I think is still pretty clear, so I'll probably keep that one. Bucks over, I forgot even who they play, to be honest with you, on top of my head. Who do they even play? What the fuck? Bucks over... Okay, they're not going to tell me right here. Bucks over Commanders, I think, is a pretty easy early game play. But honestly, I still have some doubts. And then you have the Dolphins over the Titans. And this one's my most doubtful because I think... Dolphins over the fucking... Oh my gosh, not Titans. Motherfucker. Why do I always forget what these matchups are? Especially on camera. I just get nervous. Jags. Which, again, Jags have cooled off. Dolphins are pretty good. Those are the ones that down by. I put 5 each. That way, maybe I kind of stay in it with 15 or 20 would be ideal. That way, maybe I can come up with a different strategy from then on out. So that is my current entries. I think it easily goes from Bills. Bills are probably my most clear. Bengals second most. 49ers third most. We'll go Bucks fourth most, and then Dolphins 5th most. But we're also going to add something else here. The BDGE crew, awesome crew, by the way, amazing. They comment on my video, love you guys, big time. We are going to talk about they have pick'ems for like their league reports. I'm normally going to do this before the first NFL game, so I don't have it locked in, or at least record this before the NFL game, even if it comes out later. But I do have a little bit of context going into it, so I know how some certain matchups went. First of all, though, you can't see shit on this, so like,
good luck.
Either way, I'll kind of talk about it. Tony and Andrew here. I do think Andrew had the better roster here. I'm going to not really think about it. But Tony honestly has a good matchups. I probably lean Tony here just because of Jordan Love and Josh Allen, as well as his good core of Nico and Debo Samuel, I think, doing well. Dalton Kincaid could also do well. Really, I'm going to just go fucking full string here. I'm just going to go full screen, and we'll talk about it as much as I can. Versus, you know, Andrew has a very safe team, but honestly not very good. So I'm going to go Tony here for my pick'em. Again, we're not going to really watch the video. We're just going to kind of look at this as the reference of who's really projected to win. Nick versus Jack. Nick has such an explosively great team versus Jack, who has very safe. But again, the safeness is just going to be so limited. I'm going Nick week 1. So Tony and Nick are my first 2 picks here. Then we have Nick Gunther versus Casey Settleman. Casey has a decent team. I like Casey's team a little bit. He's projected to win by just by a hair. Kirk Cousins and Brock Purdy, pretty good, decent quarterbacks there. And I think I'm gonna lean Casey over Nick Gunther here, just because I don't know about Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase being a little bit interesting. Trevor Lawrence isn't the greatest quarterback. I think there's a better upside for Levis Meat, for that roster. So I'm going to go KC Settlement in this one. Then next up, we have, Joe versus Nate. Joe has C.J. Stroud, Matthew Stafford, Tyreek Hill, Najee, Kyron Williams, Joshua Palmer, Sam Laporta, Anthony Richardson. Nate has Anthony Richardson, Isaiah Pacheco. I'm going to go, man, it's really projecting that Nate is going to lose or win by a long shot. Mostly probably because of the quarterback position, I think. No, it's probably mostly to the running back and then the receivers a little bit, it looks like. Oh, man, it's a better floor for Nate, but Joe could go off this week with a couple of his players. That's why I'm kind of leaning him, but man, do I think the Colts are going to do well against Houston, or do I think Houston's going to do well? I think I'm going to lean Joe here. I know it says the adjusted points are going towards Nate, but I'm going to go Joe. I think that's a good little clever pick here for Joe. Then JL versus Jameson. I think JL has a much better team here. Lamar Jackson, Jonathan Taylor, Travis Etienne, all elite. Zay Flowers, all right. Devontae Adams, pretty good. And I think there's just a low floor here for Jameson. So I'm going to go JL, not even thinking about it too much here. If you want to kind of pause and make your own pick, go to their page too and make their own pick'ems. Adam versus Jared, final little matchup. Will Levis and Deshaun Watson's your QBs. You're going to get fucking cooked, dude. Even though you're projected more points. Okay, I would say Derrick Henry, Amon-Ra, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. Why you go 2 Tampa Bay receivers? Interesting. Christian McCaffrey on the flex, which he's hurt, so I guess that makes sense. Ooh, so it's really okay, you know what? They got me convinced Adam is going to win this based on his other core. Besides, he has suitable quarterbacks, but he has an elite fucking core here. Jared has a decent player here and there, but so much potential there. Maybe later in the season he'll do better, but I think Adam is easily going to win this. I think that does cover me here, so I'm going to go ahead and make picks. Oh my gosh, I don't even remember. But those are my picks. I'm going to make them officially in this because I can't really remember exactly everybody I picked, but I think JL, for example, Sexy and Adam, I forgot even exactly what I picked there. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video of Power Rankings. It was a little bit longer of a video because it's the beginning of the season. But man, I'm excited to be back. Let's do this, baby. See y'all in the next one.